I want to speak to you very briefly about the world, because if I'm to speak to you about your leadership and the context of this workshop, or motivational speech as it was called, is to speak about your leadership, I think I need to mention a little bit about what I perceive is happening in the world, because we are living in times where it is becoming virtually impossible to ignore what's happening globally, because all of it significantly affects your country and stuff. So I know it might be a bit of a shift, but I really want to spend a little bit of time on thinking of what I see happening in the whole world, so that we can look at how it applies here. So what I see in the whole world, the short answer to that question is that nobody has a clue what's going to happen over the next 20 years. That's what I believe. I think nobody has a clue what's going to happen. I'm going to tell you why. Number one, the environment. Yeah? So for the first time in human history, we realized that if we just continue not minding the environment, we might not be here in 100 years. This has never happened before. The worldview, the way of thinking that allow us to have this insight have not happened before in the history. There were some people doing some warning things, but with the certainty that we have now, we have realized that it is unsustainable the way we live, and there needs to be some action that needs to be taken. Now, what I say, why is there a big question mark, is that it is still a big question mark of how it's all going to work. Because there are some predictions about the CO2 and how much we don't need. There is a lot of different thoughts from scientists and from different people, but we haven't been ever able. I mean, like you look at the weather report, like weather forecast, like the weather forecast for tomorrow, maybe weather forecast for a day in a week. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how it's in Serbia. Maybe you have like genius weather forecasters, but in UK, it's like they say it's sunny and it rains, and and they say it's going to be raining and it snows, and it's like all over the place. The best was in Netherlands. How they do it in Netherlands is they say in the morning it's going to be sunny, then it's going to rain, and in the evening it's going to snow. And and pretty much like within the scope of a day, it kind of somehow happens also. They can say that we were right? So we are not able to. We don't have enough understanding to be able to predict what's happening in the global climate and the global environment. Now, a lot of people are now saying CO2, big summit in Copenhagen, a lot of hopes, first coordinated effort. Now, that might be an answer, but there are already scientists that are saying that maybe CO2 is not enough. CO2 as a human-produced emissions, maybe we can control, but there are already scientists that are saying, well, there is a lot of methane in Russia, and because the climate change is already happening and the permafrost is melting, when the methane is going to get released, we actually don't have a clue what's going to happen. Because it's more aggressive than CO2, we can't control it, it's just going to get into the atmosphere, we don't have a clue. There is many weather models, many predictions. I think the bottom line is that we don't have any certainty about what's going to happen with our climate and what it's going to require. Yeah? Second, economy. Again, who knows what's going to happen, right? Like, I studied economy 5-6 years ago. We learned a lot of different theories about how economy works. I think all those books are now being rewritten. Because what has happened in the last year and a half, the financial crisis, the interdependency of the economy. I have read somewhere that the financial services have grown in size 1,400% in the last 20 years. 1,400% only in one sector, which is the financial sector. So I would say, and I think there are many people who have a lot of opinions of what's going to be happening, but I think that nobody has a certainty of what's going to happen with our monetary system, with our economies, and with the world, with kind of the global market. I think it's a big question mark. There are a lot of things that can happen. Also because a lot of the theoretical models that are explaining what's going to happen are not taking into account emotions. Yeah? So a lot of them are mathematical models. In economy, models approximate reality. They are not reality. If you predict based on approximations, you might be right, you might be wrong. There is much more to human beings than rationale and reason. There is things like emotion, there is things like coincidence, all of these things. A lot of the mathematical models, regression analysis, all the statistical models, they are quite based on past prediction of what's going to happen in the future. Of course, they approximate probability, but I think the bottom line is we don't have a clue what's going to happen. Nobody has predicted this crisis. A lot of people were saying something like that might happen. Nobody predicted the scope. There are countries going bankrupt, Iceland, Latvia. I spoke to a friend from Latvia. They have a running joke that the last person on the airport turns off the light. Very difficult situation. Very difficult situation. It is. The country basically ran bankrupt. There is no more money for hospitals, no more money for schools. They are closing schools and hospitals. And, this is what's happening currently, right? So nobody could predict this, because if we could predict it, we would prepare for it, right? So big question mark. What's going to happen with the economy? There are a lot of alternative monetary systems that are being proposed. Some of them are taking away the idea of money. Some of them are, I know this concept called resource-based economy, where you proclaim all the resources of a commonwealth of all the people in the world. In that world, you then can have abundance of energy right away. Because currently, we have the technology to have renewable energies, but we don't have, it's too expensive. If you remove money, or if you change the way money allocates value around the world, you might be able to have free energy for everyone. A lot of questions. I don't have time to answer them. The bottom line, nobody has a clue. Science. Now, again, nobody has a clue. It's becoming kind of a mantra. Now, there is new researches in quantum physics over the last 20 years that are actually proving that most of the things we thought were certain, most of the things we studied in schools around physics and all of these things, most of these things are being fundamentally shaken. There have been experiments done that have been a little bit silent, but they were actually done in the beginning of the 20th century, where they've proven that when two scientists are running the same experiment, depending on who the scientists are, the experiment outcome changes. So depending on what the observer and what the observer wants to happen, the outcome of the experiment changes. Now this is very interesting, because all of our education in physics and mathematics is based on the notion that once something is described, it's called exact science. Once something is described, this is how it happens. The new discoveries in quantum physics, and I don't have time to dive into that more deeper, new discoveries are saying, well, maybe we, human beings, and how we perceive things and what we do when we see something happening have much more fundamental implications than we ever thought. Yeah? When they go down into atoms, you have atoms and neutrons and electrons and protons and stuff. When they go deeper to the subparticles of the atom, when they go really deep, there's this particle that is there, and then sometimes it disappears, and nobody knows where. There are photographs where they were able to track the same particle at two places at once. They didn't split. It's not like two particles split, but it was at two places at the same time. Yeah? So this might sound like science fiction, but this is what's happening. This is what the quantum physicists are now researching. What does this mean? The whole world, how we see it, might be completely different. Yeah? So bottom line, nobody has a clue what happens in science. Spirituality. This is a picture of a Mayan calendar. Have you guys heard about the Mayan calendar? Yes. So I won't spend too much time on it. There's a huge spiritual movement in the Western world. A lot of people are speaking about the Mayan calendar. What's also happening is that more and more people are becoming spiritual. That doesn't mean religious, but more and more people are trying, time to reflect, to meditate, to engage in some spiritual practices. A lot of people I see in London realizing that the chase for money doesn't bring them the inner happiness that you were beautifully describing, are now looking inside and saying, what is it that I want? What is it that brings me happiness from within? Because they realize that the world from outside is not bringing it. Now, some of the predictions of the Mayan calendar are, kind of the catastrophic movie, which is just coming out, everything's going to die and it's all going to be horrible. Some predictions are saying the way we think about the world will change. There is some physics predicting, different planets will align in a different way. We don't know what's going to happen, yeah? Something might happen, something might not. It might be like the 1999, 2000 kind of switch from one day to another. Nothing really happened. But the bottom line is, nobody has a clue, exactly. So, if nobody has a clue, it's kind of scary, right? But at the same time, what it means is that anything is possible. It means that the future is not written yet. We are at a very unique point of human history where, because nobody has a clue, I turn it around and say, well, anything is possible. And what then becomes very interesting is a question that I think leaders today, no matter where they are, whether they are in Serbia, anywhere in the world, whether they have ambitions to be global leaders or national leaders, it's a key question that leaders today need to ask, which is, what do you want to create? Yeah? Nobody has a clue. Anything is possible. Now, what do you want to create? I get surprised because I work with people and I ask them, okay, so let's say we could have any future. What future would you like for humanity? How do we live? Do we live in, do we still live in houses? Do we live in nature? How many of us there is? How do we use technology? How do we transport ourselves? All of these things. A lot of people don't know because they never ask the question yet. Nothing wrong about that. But in the world where anything is possible, nobody has a clue, and what do you want to create? I think it's a very good responsibility for every leader today to be asking, what do I want to create and what kind of future do I want for all of us? Why is that? Is because there is a lot of people out there who don't have the worldview that you have, who are not able to think beyond themselves, who are not able to think of the whole world, they are not able to think about their countries, and they are not just thinking too much. Sometimes we think too much, because we have all this information, we think too much. A lot of people out there who don't think so much, but they are acting. Yeah. So if you don't ask yourself a question, what do I want to create, and if you don't start acting on it, we will leave the future to the other people. Now the difference is that maybe in your future, those people are in there. But maybe in their future, you are not in there. So the question is, who do you want to leave your future to?